anyway, so that makes it easy kind of to do vegetables because they're going up and we're 6 or 7 feet apart. I've done no-till, and Helen did quite a bit of no-till or minimal till, where you're in beds and then the living mulch is trying to creep back into the beds, and you're kind of managing a different way. It's possible too, but it takes a little, the trellis system makes it easy. And so we do just farmers market sales, a little bit of restaurant wholesale, but for the most part we just do farmers markets. And so we need to have really nice high quality, really good flavors is kind of the main of it. Is like if people get good fruit from us, they'll come back. And so we generally, and then just it's fun. I don't know. I like doing farmers markets. Helen likes doing farmers markets, and so we do pretty much about four a week, sometimes up to 7 a week, to be able to move all of our produce. And this is for about 7 months of the year. We're at market selling our vegetables. So we kind of line it up to where we've got everything kind of coming on together. And by the time the pears are gone, so is pretty much everything else. And then we get most of the winter to kind of just chill out and get ready for the next season, pretty much. And so then so my part of this is about over. And so what is it that, we learned here was, to me, that, the health in the soil is super important. And that with our philosophy of spraying as little as we can get away with, we are always looking at, what's going on here. Both of us are very interested in learning more about what's going on and why are these systems, working or not working. And so that interest level, it's because I do probably 5 or 6 different things for an hour or two, all day long. I'm switching around different jobs, but they're all, kind of manual, keeping me in shape kind of jobs. I don't go to the gym, by the way. And so it's, kind of keeps you engaged without being just the same thing all day. So I love that. I love the farming of it because it's, but keeping us involved and interested and going forward in it is important too. And so to continue this dance that we're doing with nature, and the interest level that we carry with us from that, I think will keep us going for quite a while. And now I'll turn it over to Helen.
So how many of you are farmers out there? Okay, a few. How many want to be farmers? More. How many want to be researchers about agriculture? Okay, all right. How many people eat? Okay, so we basically have a place to start from. You heard about the soil building dance. And now what I'm going to talk about is how we let nature help us manage insect pests. And basically, whether you look far from the orchard into the forest, which is very close, actually, right on the margins, or whether you look into a spider web in one of our trees in the orchard, nature is never very far away at Woodleaf, and that's what I love about the place. So we work really hard to mimic nature where we are, which is in the Sierra foothills, where most of the biomass, most of the plant community is oak trees and pine trees and some shrubs. And then during the wet season, we have grasses and wildflowers that during the dry season get pretty dry. But the flowers and the grasses are a natural understory that looks very much like what Carl was talking about, huh? And what about our neighbor orchards? What's the difference? Can you see? What are they not doing that Carl talked about with his soil building mimicking of nature? They're not covering the soil as much, are they? And that turns out to be something that's really important to our pest management system. Because as we work really hard to mimic nature, we're really mimicking ecosystem function. So we're trying to do ecological farming and creating habitat for what I like to call our free ecosystem providers. And by that I mean pollinators and beneficial insects that feed on pests. And there's one of them right there in the corner. We've got a robin in our early spring orchard. So what we're doing is trying to create above and below ground habitat. And above ground habitat is some of those, what other people call weeds, flowering to provide habitat for beneficial insects, predators, and parasites. I'll talk a lot about them in a minute and introduce you to our family. We also have under the ground, under that undisturbed perennial living mulch that Carl talked about, we have this whole other web of life going on. We have our microorganisms and our soil food web, so to speak. We have fungi, bacteria, actinomycetes, earthworms. We have protozoa. Anybody ever heard of mycorrhizae? Yeah, good. We have mycorrhizae down there too. So we're creating not only above ground habitat, which is easy to think about because it's right in front of us, but below ground habitat too. And all of that habitat building is leading us to this ecosystem function, this important farm function, which is insect suppression. And I could spend a lot of time with real nerdy science discussion about this whole intricate web in and of itself, this creating habitat so that insects feel at home. But I'm not going to. If you're any entomologists here, there's not a soul of you who's an entomologist. So good thing I'm not going to talk about this. We just did a webinar at the eOrganic website if anybody wants to really get into all the details. But let's look at what's going on at Woodleaf. So you know what's going on here. We've got the soil covered. We're letting that perennial living mulch flower. And what happens is that by not disturbing it, by not tilling it, we have year-long cover for ground-dwelling predators like spiders and carabid beetles. I'll talk about them a little bit more here. And we have pollen, nectar, seeds, and sap that provide food for parasites and predators of pests. And in fact, as we've been studying our system, we've found that some of these so-called weeds actually seem to be the preferred pollen sources or food sources for some of our most important predators. These beautiful creatures are syrphid flies. They're two different species, and I'm just going to walk over here and see if my mic is still working. This is chickweed, their favorite. This is speedwell, a second favorite. So thank God we don't have to plant this stuff. It comes for free. Create habitat and they will come. By the way, do you know how you tell different syrphid flies apart? Isn't that a beautiful pattern? It's art right there. It's nature mimicking art. So another thing, let's go back. Another thing that we have found that's, I think, key to our success in pest suppression or insect suppression is that we create habitat right in the orchard, right in the crops. It's interspersed. We don't plant what people call insectaries on the edge of our agricultural fields or hedgerows on the borders of our fields. We have them right in between where our crops are because we don't want our predators and parasites to just visit us and then go back home to their habitat. We want them to stay and live with us. This turns out to be actually really important because a lot of the insect ecology research is showing us that in fact some of our most important predators and parasites aren't moving very far, and parasitic wasps, syrphid flies, and lacewings in one study only went about 76 meters from their habitat. So we think it's really important to have habitat where your crops are, to figure out how to do that. So, of course, we could just say create habitat and they'll come, but we've gone out and counted and monitored to see who's really there and who's actually getting the work done for us. And in 2013 and 2014, we went out and scouted weekly for different species of predators and parasites. And look at this beautiful web. We are reattaching threads back to the web of nature, and look at the webs going the threads going up and down. We have different predators that live in our orchard in that undisturbed perennial living mulch year-round. These are the ground-dwelling resident predators, and I'd like to introduce you to some of them because they're my favorite.